Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about Internet of Things or so-called IoT devices. Um, First of all, let's go over the main definition and understand what exactly are we talking about here. The Internet of Things is a system of interrelated computing devices. We're talking about everything that has an IP address in simple terms. So mechanical and digital machines, objects, animals, people, or anything else that is provided with unique identifier. And the ability to transfer data over a specific network without actually requiring human to human or human to computer interaction. Moving forward, we can say that a thing in the Internet of Things network could be a person with a heart monitor implant, maybe an animal with a biochip, or maybe automobile that has a built-in sensors to alert when a driver is tired or the tire pressure is low. And we're talking at all kinds of different things, literally things that have unique identifiers and communicate throughout the network to each other. So that object can be assigned an IP address and can transfer all kinds of data over that specific network. These days, organizations and in variety of industries are usually using those IoT type of devices or just networks in order to operate more efficiently, to have a better understanding of their customers, to deliver enhancement to the customer service. Maybe we're talking about improvement, decision making, and all kinds of things that are related to gathering different information, real life information from different parts of our everyday work, everyday life, and then combining this information, analyzing it, and getting the detailed results and really accurate results can help us a lot when we, for example, decide what type of heating mechanism to use in our home, or maybe uh, how is the weather moving towards hot, warm, cold, and what will be the next thing that we should expect as far as maybe rain coming, or um, keeping track of who is coming in and out and how often, and what are they doing within the specific building, corporate building, things like that. We're talking about cameras, we're talking about everything that you can imagine in simple terms, of course. And let's move forward and talk a little more about history of IoT devices. Here we can say that Kevin Ashton, who is a co-founder of Auto ID Center at MIT, first mentioned the Internet of Things in a conference presentation he made to Procter and Gamble in 1999. So he wanted to bring audio frequency ID to the attention of Procter and Gamble's senior management. So Ashton basically called his presentation Internet of Things in order to incorporate really cool new features, trends, and this was pretty new for 1999. You can imagine the internet was just coming out, so the idea of internet was pretty hot out there. And MIT professor knew Gershenfield book, When Things Start to Think, um, also appearing in the same year. Um, it didn't actually use the exact term Internet of Things, but it provided a really clear vision of where the IoT was going towards. And it was really the beginning of a new era, and we're talking about huge industry here, a lot of security vulnerabilities looking from our security point of view, of course. And um, we're talking about a lot of financial movement around, and people trying to come up with new ideas, start making different smart devices without actually thinking too much about security at first, because of course something that hot on the market, it's really good to have and to be the first that's actually creating and manufacturing something to be sold to hundreds of thousands or even millions of people out there. And talking a little more about history, we can say that um, the IoT has evolved um, from the convergence of wireless technologies and microelectronic mechanical systems, and um, also the internet and all the microservices that we're talking about. So Internet of Things these days has helped tear down the um, different levels and different silos between operational technology and information technology, and thus enabling the unstructured machine generated data, as I mentioned before, to be properly analyzed for specific um, insight information, um, in order to drive future improvements for businesses, for personal use, family, whatever it is. It's really, really useful as far as information. As you know, information is a really valuable asset, and this is how we have so-called imaginary agents everywhere, which provide us with ongoing data, and with this data we can actually analyze it and uh, make informational um, storage or assets that are very, very useful for future conclusions and ideas and plans that we're about to draft and execute later on. The first internet appliance, this is just an example, was actually a Coke machine, and it was installed at Carnegie Mellon University. We're talking about 1980s here, and it was using the web, um, and programmers were able to check the status of the machine, and determine whether there would be a cold drink awaiting them, and should they decide to make the trip to the machine, meaning they were just checking if everything is still running properly, if there is enough coke in there, if it was cold or not. And this simple example was actually one of the first examples of Internet of Things, an actual thing in this network, in this innovative type of network. So this is pretty awesome. These days, the IoT evolved from machine to machine. We're talking about M2M communication. Um, an example here are machines which are connected each other um, via network, and this is happening without any human interaction. And basically IoT evolved from this M2M communication to the cloud, actually managing it, collecting data, and all that. So, Internet of Things evolved from the generic machine to machine M2M communication. Example for that will be the connection of different devices over the network without any human interaction. That actually refers to the cloud managing and collecting data. Um, it moved from this M2M communication to the next level, which will be a sensor network of billions of smart devices that connect people, systems, and actually other different applications to in order to collect and share important data. As its foundation, M2M offers the connectivity that enables IoT. And the Internet of Things um, is actually natural extension of the SCADA system. SCADA will stand for supervisory control and data acquisition, a category of a specific software application program for used for industrial process control and gathering of data in real time for the use of remote locations, for example, in order to control different equipment, really critical equipment and conditions. SCADA systems usually include hardware and software components. The hardware once gathered and feeds data into a specific or specified central computer that has the SCADA software installed. And the evolution of SCADA is such that the late generation SCADA systems were developed into the first generation Internet of Things system. Here we're talking first starting with SCADA systems, which were needed in the big industrial world. Maybe you've heard about different nuclear plants or different manufacturers that were using such SCADA systems, especially for monitoring critical processes that would bring the whole city or whole country into a huge crisis. And that evolved to the first generation of IoT systems, and now we're only talking about IoT, mainly talking about this in the newer version of the concept of the Internet of Things ecosystem didn't really came into its own until 2010, when the government of China said it will make the IoT a strategic priority in its 5-year plan, which is something huge. As we talk about China, we're talking about enormous industry over there, and a lot of um, financial assets going towards the popularization, the implementation of such devices in every level of Chinese um, management. We're talking city management, also going towards the management of different buildings, government buildings, looking towards the levels of a specific lake or maybe manufacturing, nuclear plants, and everything within that country was and is still monitored and managed by such IoT devices, which is pretty awesome. And this brought in a whole new trend right there. How the Internet of Things work is the next main point that we're going to look at.